Hi, friends. Welcome to Wellness Possibilities with Monica Fuss. I'm Monica Fuss, your wellness coach and sailor, helping you to sail to the smoother waters of healthier living. And we're doing that in this series called Fixing Your Foods. In the first of the series, we talked about cutting back on sugar, and not just the sugar, but the foods that turn into sugar right away after you eat them. A lot of those carbs. Then we also, in the next episode, we talked about cranking up your good fats and why you need to do that. In today's episode, we're going to talk about protein and cleaning up your protein. Now, protein is an important nutrient. It's essential to a healthy diet, but also too much protein, did you know, actually turns to sugar. And we're trying to crank down those sugars, remember? And not only is it turned to sugar if you have too much, then it will also be really hard on your body's filter system, in particular your liver and your kidneys. So we want to help those organs as well. So we want them to be healthy. So we don't want to give it too much protein. So how much is enough protein? Well, I'm going to help you today. We're going to talk about what's the right amount of protein and what does it mean to what's a clean protein? I've always wondered, when people start talking about, you need clean protein, like, what the heck does that mean? I want to help you understand some ideas on that. And also, where do you start? What are some baby steps that you can take to exchange what you're eating now to something just a little healthier? Okay, so here we go. First off, we're going to talk about how much is a good protein. So how much protein do you need per day? Well, I was looking on the Harvard Medical School article, and it was talking about you can take your body weight and multiply it times a factor called 0.36. Okay, so grab your calculator, grab your phone, and enter how much you weigh, and then multiply that times 0.36, and that will tell you how many grams per day that is ideal for your body. Now, granted, that's not taking into account if you have a sedentary life or you are really active, and you're really involved in sports, you're doing marathons, you're doing bodybuilding training, but we're just talking about the average person, how much protein they need. So there's a basic guideline. Okay, so too much, if you calculate it and it says you need about 30 to 40 grams per day, and you're getting like 50, 60, well, unless you have a super active lifestyle, then that extra protein may be turning to sugar and being really hard, working your kidneys and your livers too much. And we don't want to wear them out before their time, right? Okay, so and protein's important, but most important with protein, you want a clean protein. So what the heck is a clean protein? Well, think of it as this way. Protein comes from animals, and I've always heard the phrase, you are what you eat. I'm sure you've heard that as well. Well, let's take it one step farther. The foods that we eat, the animals that we eat, we need to pay attention to what they eat. Because if they're eating out of the garbage disposal and out of the trash can, is that what we're wanting to put into our body? So we want to be sure that we pick foods, animal proteins that are actually, that's why we're calling them clean. They're eating foods like cows were intended to eat grass. Chickens were intended to be free range and not cooped up in a pen with thousands of other chickens. They weren't, back in our ancestors, they weren't kept in pens. They weren't fed grains. They weren't shot up with growth hormones or antibiotics. So anyway, we want to eat as free range as we can with the poultry, as well as grass-fed beef. And then when it comes to fish, preferably wild caught fish. Now, I was looking for salmon one time, and I was looking in the store, and I saw Atlantic salmon, and so I immediately thought, that's ocean salmon. It's not you know, it's not farmed, right? But little did I know, I found this article that had pens that are actually set up in the ocean, in the Atlantic, and they're permanent. The fish are like caught in that pen, and they are fed things that they're not normally eating if they were in the wild. So there can be farmed Atlantic salmon, and you think you're getting something great, but you need to really look. Key word is caught, wild caught, all right? And so there's a little tip for you, and not just salmon, but tilapia as well. I think that's how you say it, tilapia. There are a lot of them are farm raised, where they're confined to a pen and given unnatural foods. So in those unnatural foods become toxins in their body, and then we eat those toxic animals, and that puts those toxins and accumulate in our body. Now let's talk about the garbage disposals of the universe in the animal world, and that's like the bottom feeders. Okay, so bottom feeders I would put in the category of not only like catfish and shrimp, and what was the other one I was looking at here a minute ago? Shellfish. Any kind of shellfish, clams, those are on the bottom as well. They're bottom feeders. And also on land, pork. Now, pigs have typically, what we fed them is called slop. Well, that slop was the foods that the part of the foods that we didn't want to eat. So we would just throw that out, and there were our garbage disposal they would clean up. And so they eat actually everything. So why do we want to eat? If we didn't want to eat it in the first place, when we fed it to the pig, why do we want to eat the pig that's eating that everything, all the what's left over kind of stuff. So we want to avoid that. So let's get to the bottom line. Okay, so let me list off just to make it simple for you. I've already talked about when you're looking at salmon, make sure you look at wild caught salmon and other fish, seafood. And on the animal proteins, we talked about make sure that the beef is grass-fed, the chicken is free range, and we're going to avoid that pork and shellfish. When it comes to eggs, okay, so not only do we want the chickens that we're going to eat, we want them to be free range, but we also want the eggs from the chickens that are free range and not in cages, and are organic and not antibiotics fed and not hormone fed. Okay, so when you pay attention to that when you look for eggs, we want to use other proteins that we can get are like from raw nuts and seeds, and butter and milk. And their butter and milk's made from raw nuts and seeds. And then when it comes to dairy, speaking of milk, we want organic milk, and we want it ideally from coconut or almond milk or something like that. But make sure where that cow has been, has it been cooped up in a cage and fed, hormones, been given hormones and other things. We want to make sure it's organic milk. We want that cow that's going to be giving us milk out there eating the grass and the things that it was made to eat, right? Okay. And also raw cheese, full fat, plain yogurt in moderation. We don't want very much of that because a lot of yogurt has sugar in it. So remember, we're keeping off the sugar. And one more thing. So vegan version of protein, a lot of people like to use soy products. And did you know that soy is actually like one of the #1 GMO'd or genetically modified foods on our planet, second only to corn and wheat? So we want to avoid soy proteins if you're going to be vegan. If you're going to be vegan, we need to look more of a protein that is actually absorbable and easily digested by our system. Whey is not vegan, but whey is a byproduct of making cheese. It's a dairy product, a dairy source, and it's not very digestible. I have seen some evidence of athletes that have gone, they really talk a lot about having using whey protein as their recovery shakes. And, come to find out, those that have experimented with switching over to pea protein, it's actually, they've gotten a lot leaner muscle, and they've actually grown their muscles, and they're leaner muscle, and their bodies look even better than using whey. So I highly recommend, if you're going to use a vegan protein, use a pea protein, and a protein that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it, preferably one that doesn't have any sugar in it, because we don't want it to spike our insulin levels. So the protein that I use bone broth, and I also use a combination of pea, rice, and cranberry protein. It's mostly pea protein, and there's no sugars in it. So if that's something you're interested in, I can get you some more information. But thank you so much for being here today and learning how we can fix our foods with some baby steps. We're not going to fix it overnight, but if you can take just baby step, each time you go to the grocery store, choose a different version than maybe what you've been using before, and you will be on your way to sailing to smoother waters of healthier living. Talk to you later. See you next time.